Paid him.
Well, I mean, shit.
Yeah, man. He
He
deserved
was the reason why the Celtics were the Celtics. He kind of developed that team. Now he did the same thing with the Rockets.
Yeah.
So he pretty official.
Rockets about to be clean for a minute too. They about to be clean for a minute. They got some young people.
He just can't slip up like he did before, though.
Dr. Umar is looking at him like King Kong consciousness.
What do you say? But Black Queens forever, Snow Bunnies never.
Yeah.
The memes be killing me. Like anytime it's something, anything close to a white girl or something like that, it's always a dude leaving a meme with
Dr. Umar.
Umar looking through a magnifying glass, like what's going on here?
Man, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
That's funny, man.
Yeah, man, they deserve it. He deserved his bread, though.
Yeah, man. Hey, don't forget to clock in. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Here we go.
Great Pharaoh, the gift of Troy is a fabulous fabric from the land of the 5 rivers.
Years ago, when we came to Los Angeles, I really believed that the greatness of the Raiders would be in its future.
We are back for another edition of Around the Shield, man. We are back, man. I know we've been on a little hiatus. I mean, we doing the 50-50 show. You know, it's the off-season edition, obviously, but you know we had a lot of things going on during the off-season. But hey, we got one. We got a special one for you. We got a special guest today. Had a chance to talk to Juan Soto, so stay tuned for that. We're gonna catch up on that conversation. Last time we spoke to him was pre-draft, and we want to hear his thoughts. You know, you guys are gonna hear his thoughts on like what he thinks of the offseason so far, and you know the draft, and Ashton Genty, who we all agree like, oh yeah, Ashton Genty's not gonna be the pick at number 6. It's not gonna happen. And the Raiders, you know, always kind of do. They always surprise you. I'm not gonna lie, the Raiders do a good job of keeping everybody on their toes, man. Like they really don't do what everybody else says they're gonna do. Sometimes they did. Back in the day, it got a little bit predictable with how Davis. In a bad way. in a bad way. I know. But yeah, man, and you know we're gonna get into some of the, you know, we're gonna have little quick hitters too. Some of the news that we've been hearing lately. You know, the Damon Arnett's back in the NFL. Meanwhile, Jack Jones still looking for a job, man, which is crazy. But you know, that's another conversation. We'll save that conversation for later. You know, and then we'll get into Henry Ruggs. I know we kind of got into it last show, but is there a chance? You know, is there a chance that he could play for the Raiders? You know, we'll talk about that. And I mean, what else am I missing? I feel like I'm forgetting something here. Oh, Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into Tom Brady on his evaluation of the quarterback position this offseason. And it was kind of interesting in some of the news that came out from Mike Silver. A lot of Raider fans might be familiar with him. They hate him. That's one of the guy. Mike Silver, who else? Mike Silver, who do you put? The dude from Pro Football. I think they hate him too.
Nah, they hate old boy. What's old boy's name? The dude with my dude with the stats.
Josh Dubow? Josh Dubow?
Yeah, Josh Dubow.
Yeah, I mean,
Dubow.
Yeah, he has stats lined up. Look,
he be having Raiders stats lined up that just make the Raiders look just like trash. But it's not like we've been good though. So like people hate that he pointed it out, but it's like, come on, bro. Right. Like I'm just.
I'm gonna call it out. I'm gonna call it out if the Raiders are actually good and he's not coming out with stats about the Raiders being good. If he's not doing that, he's quiet, or he's coming out with stats that's like trying to, you know, make the Raiders look bad while they're playing well or playing good. You know what I mean? Then I'll be like, you're a hater. But I think he's good at what he does, man. I'm not gonna lie. I gotta figure out his formula. I don't know what some of these media outlets, they got like third-party statistician companies and stuff like that, you know, on their payroll. So they got that on man. They got any stat they want, they can get it, man. So you know, it is what it is. But going back to Tom Brady, he was, you know, Tom Brady, not a good liar. He said, I haven't really been evaluating the quarterback position. Like, you know, when in regards to I think it was what was the question earlier in the offseason where they talked? Oh, it was an interview about Shador, and he tried to act like I had no idea, but you know,
you probably blame the media. Like, oh, it was the media. It was the media. Like, come on, bro.
Yeah, we'll get into that. We'll get into that, man. But yeah, man, if you haven't already, make sure to click and hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and hit that notification bell. This is a late night edition, a night crew, man. We appreciate everybody pulling up. Yeah, man, always coming through and supporting the show, man. We appreciate you, my guy. But let's not waste any time, man. Let's just get into it. You know, I had a chance to catch up with you know, Juan Soto. You know, if you guys don't know, he's one half of the, you know, Autumn Windbags, and then also he has a great YouTube channel, man. If y'all haven't subscribed, y'all better go subscribe to Raiders vs. the World. But yeah, let's get into it, man. Let's get into the interview, man. We back. We are back for Around the Shield with guess who? You know what I mean? The one and only Juan Soto. You already know him from obviously one half of the Autumn Windbags. But Raiders versus the world, man. If you haven't already, man, you got to go over there and subscribe to my guy, man. Juan, what's going on, bro? How you been?
Busy but good, man. Busy but good. Now we gotta try to fill in some time. This is like the dead period right now.
Bro,
where it's like the calm before the storm.
You gotta like figure out which. You know what though? Like, I feel like you've done this for a while now, so you kind of know how to navigate this dead space. You know, this dead time where there's not gonna be no football until like. I think July 22nd is when they report training camp.
The 17th is the rookies, and then vets come in the 22nd.
Yeah. But yeah, man. Let's get into it. Let's not waste any time.
Yeah,
the last time that we spoke, we were talking about is before the draft, and we were pretty sure like the Raiders, they're not going to draft a running back at number 6. It just doesn't make any sense. That's not how you build a football team, especially how the Raiders are currently constructed. They should go in the trenches. Maybe there's other premium positions that you should draft in the top 10, top 5. But guess what they did?
Psych. They did exactly that. You know what? Look, ultimately, as long as you got an impact player at a position of need, there really was no wrong way to go. There was some places that I think you and I thought they could have gotten better at. But ultimately, look, Todd McShay said this himself. I'm not pulling this out of thin air. He said this is the deepest, best running back class he's ever seen. So when you get the running back in that class that's seen as head and shoulders above everybody else, he's a pretty damn good player. It just happens that you have a position of need at running back. Things fell into place. I'm not mad at it. I was perfectly fine with it.
Oh, okay. Well, because I looked at it from perspective is like, all right. Now the expectations are going to be high, because when you take a guy at number 6, historically speaking, like the guys that you take that high, in order to get the biggest bang out of the buck, so to speak, you got to like get a lot of production, especially year one. You know what I mean? They're on a tick, because to be honest, like running backs, do they really get second contracts with the same team?
You got to be special. You got to be special to do that.
Exactly. And now you got Ashton Jeanty in the building. Like, what do you predict his impact on this offense? Like, where do you think year one is going to be for him, or what do you think is a success? Well worth it to be in, I would say the bare minimum. Let's say like total yards. Let's make it simple.
Well, then the last guy who got picked around, so I believe it was 7, was Bijan Robinson, right? So he had 1,200 yards total yards. So I think any 1,200 to, I'm not gonna say he's gonna have a Saquon rookie season. He had like 1,800, total yards and like 12 touchdowns. I'm not saying he's gonna do that,
right?
But he gets anywhere in that range. I think it's gonna be a success for us, considering what we had last season and considering how Chip Kelly does like to use multiple backs. So I don't know that they're gonna really just wear him down from the very beginning. Kind of like he had Algiers there. Bijan Robinson did, right? And he was more of like he was probably the better like running the ball running back at the time, and he got the bulk of the carries. But Bijan Robinson got a lot of touches, so I can see that happening. Raheem Mostert at this point in his career does have to be handled with kid gloves, but he's only 1 year removed from scoring over 20 touchdowns, right? So there's different ways you can use these guys, and Chip Kelly has shown. Last season he had 2 1,000-yard rushers and 2 1,200, or almost 2 1,200-yard receivers in the same team. So it's like he's used to using a lot of guys. So I think that it's difficult to put a specific number on Ashton Jeanty, but I think that 1,200 range is something that we can look at. The year before, in college, Ashton Jeanty led all running backs in receiving yards. So it's not like he can't do it. He can. It's just he wasn't asked to do it last season. So we'll see, man. We'll see. I really do like. Can we? I don't want to skip over it because you brought it up, but it all comes down to the offensive line. If the offensive line doesn't play well, it doesn't matter. Dante Thornton, Besh, none of these guys are going to matter. Geno Smith, none of these guys. If the offensive line doesn't step up, none of this is going to matter.
Yeah, but it's interesting. You say 1,200 yards, And I'm thinking about like the last successful running back the Raiders had, and obviously Josh Jacobs come to mind. And you think about his rookie season, he had like 1,100 yards, 1,200 yards rushing,
Mm-hmm.
and he was picked, in the 20s, I believe. So you're saying Josh Jacobs' rookie season is good enough for you?
Well, you have to take a look at the fact that it was Josh Jacobs, and that was pretty much it in the running back position. I do think that Raheem Mostert's going to have a bigger role. I mean, like, all this is barring injury. I don't want to say it because I don't want to put it out there, but all this is like if they stay healthy, it's going to be probably a 70-30 mix somehow. Mm-hmm. Mostert's going to get the ball a lot. Last season, he didn't do really well, but dude, he had a cracked sternum last year. I had a cracked sternum a few years ago. I couldn't sleep. And this guy's playing football with a cracked sternum. So people get injured and they come back, and that's fine. But I mean, if you run a 4.3 coming out of college and you slow down a little bit because you're 30 years old now and you run a 4.4, you're still pretty dang fast. And he scored the bulk of those touchdowns on screen passes and stuff like that. So, Chip Kelly can do that. And I think that a lot of the touches are going to be spread around a little bit. It all depends on what he can do. It all depends on when they put the pads on, what he shows he can do well. I don't think that Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly have been coaches that have been known to put guys in a position where they're not going to be successful. So whatever he can do, he's going to do that. And we'll just see how well he can do that and what they can stretch him out to do more of.
Well, speaking of Carroll, that's another factor into this because Carroll, historically speaking, he's obviously wanted to lean on the running game on offense. Mm-hmm. And typically he's had that one, guy that leading the way, from the Chris Carsons, the Marshawn Lynch's, and, I'm trying to think, was it the running back that's currently there? I think Carroll was there when he was there. I'm trying to remember his name, but my point is that Pete Carroll usually had that one running back. Now Chip Kelly, he comes with his resume of coaching up offense. Do you think is this gonna be a joint decision? Or is it gonna be Pete Carroll saying no, we gotta lean on Ashton Genty, or do you think Chip is gonna override that? Chip is like, he has so much respect for Chip, because it sounds like that's the case for you, because you're saying that Mostert's gonna be in there. Is McCormick going to be in there? Zamir White, there's going to be another guy in there that's going to have a great training camp that we didn't see coming. It always happens. There's always going to be that unexpected.
There's always a guy that flips in there, yeah.
Yep.
I think you don't give Chip Kelly $6 million a year to hold a clipboard. Like, he's going to have a lot of say in how it happens. I haven't known Pete Carroll, because when Pete Carroll had a lot of young guys he was playing at SC, he had multiple running backs that he used. He had Lendell White, Reggie Bush was the biggest one, but he always had a lot of running backs that he threw out there. Mm-hmm. I don't think that he cares who runs the ball and how much they run the ball, as long as it's effective. He wants to run the football. He wants to get the running backs the ball. He feeds tight ends a lot. He likes to do that. And I think that as long as Chip Kelly can make the offense productive, I don't think he cares. I don't think pronouns. I don't think that Pete Carroll cares who's running the ball, as long as it's effective.
Okay. Hey, man. Well, we'll see how it shakes out, man. I'm excited to see, because Sunday's a little bit more interesting on offense, because last season, man, it was tough. It was tough to watch them at quarterback. Geno's obviously, he looks like a big upgrade from what we had the last couple of years. The running game was one of the worst in the NFL last season. Now you add Genty into the mix, and then Chip Kelly. You bring up his name a lot, and that's a name that no one's really talking about like that. Because he's coming in, and no one's really talking about the Raiders and Chip Kelly and what he could bring to the table. I mean, he just won a national championship coaching up, the Ohio State offense, and he did it a different way. He didn't do it the Philadelphia Eagles, spread them out, up tempo type of way. He did it where he was running the football, and he's a completely different, feels like, coach nowadays. And I think a lot of people are not talking about that. Do you think the Raiders with Chip Kelly, do you feel like that's going to be a home run so far?
I think the hire was a home run hire. You can't really tell until you get them on the field, but you can't ask for a much better situation than where they're at now. I don't know that there was a better quarterback available to the Raiders than Geno Smith. I don't know that there was a better offensive coordinator available. He wasn't really even available. He was under contract, but a guy that could have gotten than Chip Kelly. I don't know that they're at the point where they are right now. I don't know that there is a better head coach they could have gotten. The three most important in this today's NFL, the three most important people on the field during a game are the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and your quarterback. And we have massive upgrades at each one of those positions.
Yeah.
Each one, massive upgrades. So last season, going into the fourth quarter, we had 7 games that were a one-score game heading into the fourth quarter. 7. As bad as we were, with probably the worst running back room in the NFL, probably the worst quarterback room in the NFL, one of the worst producing offensive lines in the NFL, an inexperienced head coach that really hasn't had a chance to get going, an offensive coordinator who didn't make it past 6 games. Like, with all of that happening, a defense that was decimated by injury, right? With all that happening, we still were in one-score games in 7 games that we lost, and the one game that was, I think, pretty close that I lumped in there to make it 8 was against Atlanta, and it was 12-3 going into the fourth quarter. So a very winnable game there too. So you win half of those, and because look on either way, you're an 8-win team now. So people are saying, "Oh yeah, they can win 7 to 8 games." But wait a second, they almost won 7 to 8 games last season. Mm-hmm. And if you would just put one of those 3 things, if you would have just put Pete Carroll at head coach, Chip Kelly at offensive coordinator, or Geno Smith at quarterback, we would have won more games than we would have won last season. So all 3 of those guys together, I don't know, man. I don't see a lot of the. I understand that, you know, every time that we get a new coach or this and that, Raider Nation's, you know, up in arms and we're going to the playoffs and all this stuff. But these are massive upgrades at really very important positions in your organization.
Man, that's a great point, man. That's a great point. Head coach, quarterback, offensive coordinator, and then, you know, we can't forget about Patrick Graham. This is going to be his 4th year in the same system. Now, that being said, a few players, they lost a few players this offseason on the defensive side of football. Are there any concerns on defense for you? You know, I mean, I know they picked up Jermaine Pratt at linebacker. Yeah. We can talk about that a little bit, and maybe, you know, that secondary. You can just get into that real quick.
Corner scares me a little bit. I think Stokes is better than he showed at Green Bay. I think with Stokes, the problem is they tried to just push him into the Jair Alexander role when Jair Alexander got hurt. And Stokes is, although he's good, he's not Jair Alexander. So you kind of put him in that position because they didn't really change their defense, and they just kind of want to fit him in that role. And he wasn't that guy. His rookie season, he played really well, which Stokes did. But when Jair Alexander started getting hurt more often, and they had to use Stokes in that role, it may have hurt his confidence a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little bit iffy at corner. I know that Shaquille Griffin came in, and he's a guy that still can play, and that Pete Carroll trusts if they sign him. We'll see. He's kind of in that mold. He's 6 foot. He's long. He's quick. You know, fast. He knows the defense. He knows how they want to play. Safety, I'm okay with safety. I think Jeremy Chin is a beast. I think that he was in some really bad Panthers defenses. When he got into a defense that had a good coach and it had some good players around him, he showed what he can do last season. Yeah. I was concerned about linebacker. Jeremy Pratt automatically becomes our best linebacker. And when you take Jeremy Pratt and put him up front and shove everyone else down one, doesn't look too bad.
Right.
Doesn't look too bad. Yeah. Linebacker looks okay. Defensive line, I talked about it in my live show earlier. There's a Deepak Chona is like a big time orthopedic surgeon, and he talked about the Jones fracture injury and the recovery time, and the fact that the Raiders have not done another surgery on the foot tells him that it's just taking longer to heal. The biggest, so well, think of it, these are toes here, right? And the bones that lead into the toe, that's usually what breaks in a Jones fracture, right? So what they do is they just screw the bone shut together and then just wait for it to heal. The problem is that the blood flow isn't always the best to those areas, especially if you're a bigger guy, you don't have the blood flow there. So it doesn't always heal properly right away. Now, if it's not healing, if it's healing poorly or the wrong way, you have to go in there and redo it. But if it's just not healing fast enough or properly, you just gotta wait. It'll heal. You just gotta wait. And he used Derrick Henry as an example. He said, "Look, Derrick Henry had the same surgery like 3.5 years ago, and you don't hear a thing about him now because it's a very low re-injury rate. That injury is a very low re-injury rate. So wait for him to get healthy. He'll be fine once he gets 100% back on the field."
Yeah, with him in the mix, it makes you feel good about the defensive line.
Changes it.
Yeah, but then when you take him out of there, then it's like the inside. There's a lot of young guys. There's some role players. Yeah. It's just like there's a lot of what ifs. We'll see. But you had obviously Chris Wilkins to the mix. Kuntz is coming back from an ACL. That's going to be big too as well. Tyree Wilson going into his third year. Do you think he's going to be a factor this year? He's saying all the right things. You hear him talk. It seems like he feels a lot more confident than he did his rookie year, where obviously he just looked like a deer stuck in headlights. He
had the same injury.
Exactly.
So,
and he was still coming back from that.
Still coming back from that. Tyree, we'll see, man. We'll see. He has all the athletic ability in the world. It's just the technique that's kind of holding him back. I know that Pete's not going to be okay with just throwing him out there and just having him bull rush every single time. He's not going to do that. He's going to get other guys that can do, that can play better for the defense. So it's going to be up to him how much he plays. If they move him up and down the line, maybe that can be possible as well. But there's a lot of guys that can, go off the edge. A lot. The two guys that we drafted in Tonka and Pegues, those guys play up and down the line in college, and they did pretty well. You got Snowden still on the team. There's guys still out there that can rush the edge. So he's gonna have to step up. Right. There's a couple of those that need to really get it in gear. Including Patrick Graham. Like, I think Patrick Graham is an excellent head coach. I think he's an excellent defensive coach. The problem is his defenses have been number 26 2 of the last 3 years. And Pete Carroll's a defensive guy. And he's got that Rolodex is thick with defensive coaches who can come in. And I like him. There's a reason why we were on the phone the second that Liam Cohen was announced, over Twitter that he was going to be the head coach. There's a reason why Spytek called him right away. Like, we need you back. Get back here right now. Right. He's a good coach. But if you're a Pete Carroll and you're a defensive guy, 26 is just not going to cut it, man.
Right.
And I really do feel like the defense is going to be more of second half 2023 as opposed to 2024. I see them being 10 to 15 range. Because look, Pete Carroll, he plays, he has that cover 3 defense he likes to play normally, or he has to play that really tight man. And it's all dependent on how the defensive line can cause pressure. If the defensive line can get to the quarterback and cause some havoc there, they can play either thing, and they can confuse a lot of people with both of that. And the way that Patrick Graham likes to push those safeties up and down, it can be pretty confusing for the offenses. So we'll see, man. It looks good, but again, it's like there's a lot of question marks still on this defense.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because that dynamic between Patrick Graham. Obviously, Patrick Graham, he's been running the defense the last 3-4 years. And then you add Pete Carroll, who's a defensive guy. That's his bread and butter. So I'm sure he's going to have a lot to say. I'm not sure. He's the head coach. Head coach is going to be the guy that's going to be – he's going to have his hands everywhere, trying to coach up the entire team. But at the same time, that's his background. So it's going to be interesting what the influence on the defense is. I guess we can see it already with some of the players that they've picked up and some players that they didn't pick up or re-sign. you know, I just seen Jack Jones the other day on the Pivot podcast, you know, and, you know, he was a guy that they let go. And early in the offseason, you know, Jack, you know, he was on NFL Network talking about how excited he is to play under Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll instantly, you know, wanted to go a different direction for whatever reason, you know. But it's going to be interesting to see what the defense looks like with Patrick Graham and Pete Carroll coaching up that side of the football. But let's go back to the draft real quick, because I know we talked about Genty, but was there anybody else? Like, was there a favorite pick? Is there, like, what was your thoughts on the draft overall?
I really liked the Dante Thornton pick. I thought that there was going to be a couple of guys kind of in that mold, because there was like 2 or 3 guys. I really believe that Jaden Higgins was the target in the second round. He went with the first pick in the second round. Okay, well, let's just trade back. Yeah. And then Johnson from Michigan was probably a target that they were looking at. He went a couple of picks before. Okay, well, let's trade back again. And they ended up getting Jack Besh. Jack Besh is as close to a Brock Bowers-ish type guy, that you kind of an undersized tight end, but who's like a little bit smaller. I mean, he played tight end at LSU when he was there. So he has that same type of mentality. And I like the pick. I just think that he's like if Brock Bowers and Hunter Renfrow had a kid, it would be Jack Besh, right? He's a little bit bigger than Renfrow. He's a little bit smaller than Bowers, and he's kind of in that middle range there. Great blocker, hard to get. I mean, I watched this tape. I watched like 6 or 7 games of his, and never is one guy tackling the dude. It's always 2, 3 guys bringing him to the ground. So very similar to like how Brock Bowers plays as well. Just catch the ball and go straight upfield. But the Dante Thornton pick, I don't know what the hell Tennessee was doing with Dante Thornton. I have no clue. And this is one of the things that really pisses me off about college football now. And I get it. It's not my job on the line. I understand it. But it's very similar to what happened to Jalen Milroe. They just said, go out there and be an athlete. They didn't really coach him up on how to be a quarterback, because a lot of the things that he needed to get better at, he didn't get better at. And it wasn't like, you know, I feel like with Dante Thornton, they just said, go deep. And if the safety doesn't run with you and we find you, we'll throw you the ball.
Right.
Dude had 26 catches, but he had 6 touchdowns. That's like almost a 25% touchdown rate. Okay. Right. He had 25 yards a catch. Basically, they were saying, if the safety messes up, we're going to throw you the ball. And, I mean, he was not able to be guarded one-on-one. And whenever he was one-on-one, he was wide open. It's a matter if they threw him the ball or not. It's going to be kind of a little bit more of the same right now, because Pete Carroll just said in his last press conference, we're going to find out what these guys can do well and work with that. So, okay, you got Brock Bowers, who you probably have to double more often than not. Now you have Dante Thornton, who you're going to have to maybe get some safety help over. Like, what else do? You got Ashton Genty. You got 1,000-yard receiver Jacoby Myers, and you got a guy in Jack Besh who can do some things. You know, Trey Tucker out there as well, who, you know, I think is kind of coming through a pivotal season for him as well. So the offense looks like it has some weapons, but you definitely have to respect Dante Thornton, because if not, he shows that if you don't play him properly, he will make you pay.
Man, I hope so. I mean, that was a guy that I kind of like was hoping the Raiders were going to pick up. I didn't think it was going to be in the 4th round. I thought it was going to be in the later rounds, but you know, you never know how, like, sometimes you do these mocks enough times, you think that, oh, these players are slotted to go at this time, but when the draft comes around, they end up getting picked earlier. Some guys drop. You know, it's just the NFL has their view on certain players, and I think Arian Smith, I believe, the Jets end up picking him, and I didn't see him getting picked in the 4th round. Another deep threat from Georgia. But Dante Thornton is a guy like 6'5", 4'3" speed. There's not a lot of guys that size that can run like that.
Never before in the NFL has a guy that tall run 4'3".
Well, I think they had him just under 6'5". He's close, like, but he's just
7/8 or something like that.
Yeah, but pretty much 6'5". He's pretty much 6'5". Yeah.
He lets his hair grow. He's 6'5".
Exactly. And then I think the other guys that are like kind of like big and fast, the Calvin Johnsons, the obviously DK Metcalfs, and you know, Pete Carroll, he's familiar with that, drafting that type of receiver, the big fast receivers. So far from these mini camps, man, he's kind of been the talk of mini camps. The players, the JPJs, the Max Crosbys, all these players keep talking about him. All the beat writers that are there, they have him run. But I did find it interesting, and I want to hear your take on this and what this possibly might mean. Is Pete Carroll says something to the effect of, like, he likes the rookies playing with the ones because it's like we know what we're gonna get from the other guys, but having the young guys play with the starting offense is like valuable reps. So maybe, right? What do you think that means for some of these guys that are playing? Is it more? Do you think it's more they're playing the part like a Dante Thornton, or is it more of they're gonna give him the experience, but like guys like Trey Tucker, who's in his third year, it's a prove year. He and then you got other guys like Jack Besh, and Jack Besh is a rookie, but if you could speak to that real quick.
Well, it's kind of his formula. He throws rookies out there, and this is what he said. This is what he said himself. He said that OTAs, minicamp, all that is just to figure out what these young guys can do well. Then that dead period, which is probably like the most nerve-wracking period from any coach or GM or anything, right? Because every year, someone pulls a Rashee Rice or whatever, right? Does some weird stuff. Anyway, but that's their time to mold that into what they want to do offensively or defensively, right? So in the beginning of the year, they're not going to be asked to do too much as far as a variation of what their job is going to be. They may be out there a lot, but they're going to be asked to do what they do well a lot. Then they're going to slowly grow them throughout the season. And then when the team peaks, towards the middle of the season, you get a younger player who's played a lot of reps, who has some confidence, who is stretching his abilities a little bit more, and who's able to be a little bit more of a heavier contributor. Excuse me. It all depends on the rookie. It all depends on the player, how much they're able to handle and what they're able to do well. So I think it's pretty standard for a Pete Carroll team to do that. Even though, Dante Thornton can be out there for 60% of the plays, he could be, but it all depends on. For as good of a blocker as he is, he's going to be out there quite a bit. But if he's just out there just taking safeties with them, you're going to open up a lot underneath, right? And if they screw up, they'll do that. But they're not going to leave him. That's the thing that was really irked me about Tennessee is the 2 years he was there, that's all they did with him. They didn't do anything else. Chip Kelly's not going to do that. He's going to do more things with him as he grows. But that's the game plan that Pete Carroll has always used to incorporate either freshmen or rookies into his team, and he grows them throughout the season. So later on down the line, he has a lot more of heavier contributors on the team. So I think it's going to be a mix of, they're going to be out there, but maybe not going to be asked to do a lot. But just rest assured that what they are going to be asked to do is things that they do well.
That's what I like to hear, man. That's what I like to hear. And another thing too is you mentioned it right now. You mentioned Dante Thornton being a good run blocker. It feels like the Raiders are like set up to be really successful in the run game this year. Like everybody's a good blocker almost. If you think about it, Jacoby Myers, good blocker. Jack Besh, people have high hopes from in the run game. You mentioned Dante Thornton. Trey Tucker is also a good blocker. Not the biggest guy, but he can block. And then you got the I would say, and you brought this earlier, you talked about the offensive line. That's the question mark. Colton Miller, who right now he wants a long-term deal. He's not getting it. Some people are kind of implying maybe there might be a holdout at some point, maybe, possibly. That's just, right now it's all rumors. People are just speculating because, that there hasn't been a long-term deal agreed upon. Is that something that you can see happening, like Colton Miller holding out, or,
It's hard to hold out in the NFL now, man. It's hard to hold out in the NFL because you lose that money and that money is gone. You're not getting it back. You can't get it back. His time to hold out would have been like minicamp and stuff like that. But this is why it's very important to have a good head coach with a good resume and a guy that's got some juice, right? Because you sit in front of Pete Carroll and it's hard to tell him you're not going to show up. He's going to get you in there, and he was able to talk him in because he said he wasn't going to show up to OTAs. He said he wasn't going to show up to anything until he got a new contract, but he was there. So we'll see. I think that this is going to be one of the things that it's a tricky thing because, the last part of last season, he was much better than the first part. He was dreadful. He was awful the first, 3/5 of the season, like maybe the first half, I would say. He was not good. And then he got better. Again, it was probably the shoulder thing. When his shoulder really healed up after the bye week, he did really well. But, we'll see how that's going to work in his favor. I mean, I think he may they may be offering him like maybe a 2-year extension, maybe not something as long as he would like, but ultimately, it's fair. I think it's fair to do a 2-year because he is on the wrong side of 30 and he is coming off an up and down year and the injury and this and that. So, I mean, we'll see, man. We'll see what goes on with that. The thing that you have to take a look at is, I don't think that John Spytek is going to jump and do, a John Gruden and just throw a bunch of money at a Trent Brown or something like that. He's not going to do that. It's going to be a good deal. It's going to be a fair deal. We just have to sit back and wait. But I mean, I like Colton Miller very much, even though he's a UCLA Bruin. But he's a good dude, and he wants to be a Raider. He talked about that. I'm a little bit more at ease with Alex Kappa than a lot of people are. Alex Kappa was injured last season. Before that, he was a top 20 dude every single year. And last season he was injured and he did not play well. And he'll tell you that. And we'll see what happens. I mean, Meredith and Parham on the other side, we'll see what happens at guard. It seems like DJ Glaze is looking like a home run pick from last season. That guy looked like everyone was saying that this guy is in great shape and he's on it. And Jackson Powers Johnson is the type of bully I think that we've all been looking for on this offensive line. So it looks to be shaping up a little bit better than we had going into last season. But it all depends. It all depends on I think Kappa's going to be the big thing. If Kappa's the guy that come in here and play more like he did in previous years as opposed to last season, this line's going to be greatly improved.
Yeah, no, I hope it is. I mean, I think if we can get at least I don't know, at least average play for the offensive line, because we have the skill position players. If you think about it, maybe you can argue, do we have a number one receiver? Probably not. But Brock Bowers is the number one option. You know what I mean? Then you got Michael Mayer. It's just like we got a lot of interesting pieces. If you get a good offensive coordinator, hopefully that's Chip Kelly. But my thing is if the Raiders are playing hardball with Colton Miller, it kind of makes that decision to draft Genty kind of questionable because, I think the Raiders' leverage would have been if they drafted a tackle early. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of go to the, negotiation table and be like, all right, but now we don't have anybody outside of Colton Miller. If Colton Miller, for whatever reason, if he does something crazy, I know you said you don't think it's going to happen. But let's say if it does happen, Colton Miller not being on this offensive line, kind of, it's going to be tough to actually replace him. Big loss, and it makes the offensive line a little bit questionable going into the season. A lot of it, for sure. A lot is questionable.
A lot of it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, it could be the other way around. It could be that Colton Miller's playing hardball with the Raiders. It could be that they did offer him a fair deal, but he still wants to be played like the guy he was before his injury and before his last season. It's unfortunate for Colton Miller that last year was a poor year for him because he's heading into the last season. You usually want to ball out as you get to the end of your contract, right?
Right.
And you don't want to have happen what happened to a Malcolm Kuntz, That was a killer for him in his contract year, but time's gonna tell, man. It's really, really tough because you don't know what's going on behind closed doors, and it all depends on where these offensive linemen were rated ultimately.
Yeah,
and it's tough. It's tough. I don't like to second guess a lot of things as far as drafting goes, unless I'm really sure. I'm still, throwing my computer through the window for Tyree Wilson instead of Jalen Carter, for Alex Leatherwood instead of I forgot his name, the guy from the Vikings.
Oh, Christian Darrisaw?
Yeah, Darrisaw. I'm like, dude, Darrisaw was the pick. What happened? Why did we pick this guy?
I know, man.
But there's certain players here and there that you can't. These are like you can't argue that these guys are the guys that we let go are better than the players that we got. But when you take a look at guys that are like, okay, well, it isn't always the case where just because he's a rookie, he's better than the guys you already have. So if you have the guy that you have rated higher than the guys coming in, and you feel confident that you can sign them, it's a good move to go with it. And I think Charles Grant is a guy that has a lot of potential and a lot of upside, and a guy that we can put a little weight on him. He's still under 300 pounds. I think he's still really slim and slender, but I looked at his tape too, and if you play a FCS, you better dominate, right? If you're going to be an FCS player, you better dominate, and he did exactly that. So we'll see, man. I like to have these things play out a little bit more, but it would be extremely concerning for the offensive line if for whatever reason we lose any one of those starter guys, because the depth is a little dicey.
Yeah, and the thing is too, it's kind of telling, like, if this continues, it's kind of telling that how the Raiders feel about Cole Miller and what they want to do at that position. And I understand they drafted Charles Grant back to back, but it's in the 3rd round. Mm-hmm. I think that if this thing lingers into next offseason where they're still, trying to figure it out, or he's going into free agency, then it's kind of no doubt that the Raiders are probably going to draft an offensive line in the draft for sure.
More than likely, yeah, for sure. There's some escape hatches to that plan, right? There's always a franchise tag you can use and things like that. But the thing that you have to look at is, how do you want to use your resources, basically? And if you can franchise a guy and you have the cap space to do it, because we still have a ton of cap space right now, right? We still have the cap space to do that. Or next season, right? Same thing. If you still have the cap space and you can franchise tag a guy, you do necessarily have to go for a tackle right then and there. It all depends, and those are all the moving parts. That's why I don't envy these front offices with all the different moves that they have and the different parts they have available to them. So as far as where we are right now, I am content with the offensive line, and I am intrigued by how they're going to play. They're going to be on the move a whole lot more. Chip Kelly likes to move the pocket, so we'll see if that helps them out, creating a little bit of time, or if they're not in sync, it can get really bad really quick.
We'll see, man. We'll see how it shakes out. For me, I just hope they can agree to maybe a 3-year deal, 2-year, but in reality it's like a 2-year deal, and then maybe they draft their guy within the next couple years to groom to be that next guy up, to be that left tackle. I'm not sure. I think they're betting on maybe developing a Charles Grant, but I don't know. I don't know if we can draft a starting left tackle in the 3rd round. I mean, it's probably been done before, but the likelihood of it is
so if Charles Grant ends up being like a DJ Glaze, I think you can survive with 2 DJ Glazes. I haven't seen a player of his size with the type of feet that he has. He has he was reaching guys that were 2 players away from him, and he was still getting on that corner on these guys. And he's really mean, and he's really tough, and he's a huge bully, which I think we all like on the offensive line. I'm a geek for offensive linemen.
Right.
I watch this tape, and my girlfriend's like, well, what are you doing? Why are you watching these guys over and over again? I'm like, dude, look at this guy right here. And she's like, come to bed, dude. What's the matter with you? But Charles Grant has a lot of raw ability. He just needs to get a little bit bigger, but his tools are there. He's got the frame. He's got the long arms. He's got the quick feet. He just needs to get it upstairs. He needs to be able to get it mentally, to get the game mentally right, because the blocking schemes are a whole lot more intricate in the NFL. If they can do that, the sky's the limit for the dude, man, because he's one of the guys that I highlight. I actually highlighted him and Tonka Hemingway in my pre-draft, picking those guys are guys that are, could be sleeper guys in the later rounds. I didn't think he was going to be available as where he was in the last pick of the third round, because of the emphasis on the value on the tackle, and because there were so many so many defensive linemen in the draft. I was pounding the table. I was like, we're going to be able to get solid quality players late in this draft on defensive line, because there's so many. People were talking about the running backs, how many there were. Defensive linemen was just as deep. And we ended up getting two good guys pretty late, in the last pick of the fourth and then in the sixth round. So, but as far as Charles Grant goes, it would have to be something going on with him, either physically as far as injury goes, or he just has to like totally fall off the end of the table mentally for him to not develop into something that can be a contributor moving forward, because his physical tools are all there.
Yeah. I mean, Brandon Carroll, man, the pressure is on right now. He's going to be developing these young offensive line. So we'll see. It sounds like preferably you want to sign Colton Miller to like a 2-year type of deal, and then let Charles Grant develop, and then see what you have in him.
See what you have, yeah. Well, like a 2-year extension, so 3 years. So this year plus then the 2 years extension. I think that's a fair deal in my eyes. I mean, of course, if you're Colton Miller, you want a 5-year deal and all this other stuff, right?
Right.
But 2-year extension, have there be a nice guaranteed money, maybe a nice little bonus up front. You don't have to wait for something like that. That I think would be fair for the player that he is and he has been. Also, the player that he showed he was towards the end of last season after the bye week when he got healthier, I think.
Yeah.
But it's not like we haven't been addressing those things. It's just, again, it was almost a choose your own adventure type of book, and we just happened to land on a page 6. And what was available to us, Genty was the pick that made the most sense to them. Yeah. I mean, at least you can follow the logic, In the past drafts, we're just scratching our heads like, dude, what are these guys doing? At least you can follow the logic.
It was a safe pick from a perspective of like, this is Spytek's first ever draft. And how many blue chip players were there in this draft? A lot of people would say, right. And one of those guys that kept coming up was Genty. So for him, one of the things he said, like the reason why he took a guy like Genty, there wasn't going to be a guarantee that our guy, that there were other guys that they liked, but there wasn't a guarantee that they were going to get him. So a lot of people, for example, Travion Henderson was a favorite, that a lot of people like from Ohio State. Mm-hmm. He ended up going to New England. Who's to say New England doesn't trade up, or X, Y, and Z X team trades up and goes ahead of the Raiders, which happened a lot, because I know that the Raiders were interested in Jaden Higgins according to reports from like Ian Rappaport and things like that. Like,
and Will Johnson too, they liked him too.
Exactly, and they kept trading down. That's
what I said. In my mind, Jaden Higgins, okay, he's gone. We can trade down and still get Will Johnson. Will Johnson went like 2 picks ahead. All right, screwed that up. Let's trade back again. And it worked out in our favor. We ended up getting those extra third round. I mean, third and a fourth, I think. But it ended up working out for us. But man, you're exactly right. It's it's the safe pick. Just so happens to be maybe a generational player. Who knows? He has the makings of. He has to hit the field, right? Yeah. Even Gino, this is what I love about freaking the whole Seattle guys, right? The Pete Carroll guys. Said the same thing. He looks good, but we haven't put the pads on yet. Geno Smith said it. Pete Carroll said it. Max said it too. It's like, these guys look good, but we haven't put the pads on yet. We'll see when we put the pads on.
Right.
And again, we got one of the best, if not the best, running back class most of us have ever seen, and you get the guy that's the best one out of all of them. Just so happens to be a position of need. I mean, all the pieces fell into place.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, before we head out, man, let's get a grade from you. Off season so far. I mean, the off season, like free agency, the draft, the coaching hires. Like if you put it all together, Spytek and what he's done so far, just put it all together. If you had to give it a letter grade,
I give him a solid B. A solid B. I think that the cornerback does need to be addressed a little bit. I think that maybe not getting another guy on the offensive line may come back. Adam, there's a lot of young guys that are looking to really play a lot of key minutes and key snaps. So I don't know that you could have done much